What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So, four-star Brandon Gardner, a high school basketball player. Forget if he's a small forward or power forward position, but he did commit to USC a few hours ago, joining the 2023 class along with Isaiah Collier, Ayrton Page, and Bronny James, those players as well. But I don't expect him to really get that much playing time just because of how much other talent is able to transfer into the program and how much they already had there as well. But either way, it's a nice depth piece for them to get for their near future, and we'll see how good he is. He's a pretty athletic guy, but we'll see what he can do to be able to carve out some playing time. And then the five-star defensive lineman Edric Houston, who visited USC pretty recently, like a week or two ago, still pretty much buzzing about his visit out there, saying that USC is still definitely in his top schools that he's still thinking about committing to. He might commit around his birthday, which I think we actually share the same birthday, August 22nd. So that'll be pretty good news for the both of us if he gives me some positive news there. But he is from Georgia, so obviously they're still in it. Ohio State, I know he has an official visit set there. Clemson was really high on him, and then Alabama as well. So see how this recruitment goes, but definitely going down to the wire for the five-star defensive line player. And then USC and UCLA have this Crosstown Cup thing that they do where they kind of tally up the stats of when the teams play each other and the wins and losses in there, whether it's football, basketball, tennis, water polo, whatever you want to name it. And apparently USC was able to get this Crosstown Cup this year, 105 to 80 something. So it was a pretty good victory for them overall. I guess they're crosstown rivals, but yeah, we'll see what they can do in the next year and hopefully be able to regain that cup as well. But either way, it's a good thing for USC sports overall. So the Chargers have signed a wide receiver, Darrius Shepherd. They did let go of a linebacker, I forget his name, but they technically still have one roster spot available. 89 of the 90 are filled, but obviously that's going to trickle down to like 50 some odd players and maybe a couple handful extra to be on your practice squad. But see who they're saving that spot for in the future. Maybe they're trying to get a John Johnson III to come and play, who was released by Cleveland, or Leonard Floyd as well, another ex-Brandon Staley defensive player who both then played really well when they were with Staley. So maybe they could get some of those guys on their team, but you just never know. So we'll see who ends up getting cut from other places like that. But Shepherd, heard he recently played in that XFL league, and he did pretty okay, but more so on like the kick returns and all that stuff. So he's probably going to be brought in for that to be a backup to Darius Davis, who they recently drafted out of TCU. Or if Davis isn't ready, they might end up going with Shepherd as a starter, at least for 1 year. And you just never know. But I don't know if you keep both of these guys, you might end up putting Shepherd on the practice squad as long as Davis proves that he's still good enough, even for a rookie, to be your kick returner, punt returner. But either way, it's a nice depth piece in case they need a way backup wide receiver, because sometimes the Chargers do end up needing one of those later in the season. And then, yes, Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks recently said that he may be interested in reuniting with the Lakers head coach Darvin Ham, who was obviously the assistant coach out there with the Milwaukee Bucks before he came to LA. And I've always liked Bobby Portis, even when he was coming out of Arkansas. Want the Lakers to get him. They did not, but he did pretty well for Chicago. It was pretty much up and down in New York, but once he got traded, or signed actually, with Milwaukee, that's when his career flourished and was able to get a big contract after that 1 year deal. So it's definitely become one of the better guys, whether he's coming off the bench or starting for you at that power forward / center position. I think it'd be pretty cool to add onto the Lakers roster, but they will have to trade for him. Obviously, I try to work out a mock trade here, something not involving D'Angelo Russell, because that would involve a sign and trade, and obviously I'm pretty sure Milwaukee can't do that because of how much money they have invested in guys like Giannis and Drew Holiday. Don't know if they're going to bring back Middleton or not, but he is most likely going to be a free agent as well. But in this scenario, I was able to get at least one of my other favorite players So I got Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen, and Javon Carter coming to LA. The nice picks, but obviously these are pretty good players coming back to LA. And I'm sending kind of okay players, so I did have to send a first round pick. So Lakers are sending Malik Beasley, who's still on that team option 1-year deal. Who isn't a bad player, but it would be better over there, in my opinion. Also Mo Bamba, just another bigger contract to throw in there in the deal. And then also the Lakers 2023 first round pick. Obviously you can't trade this right away until on draft night when it's the Lakers pick, but maybe that might entice the Milwaukee Bucks to be able to bring in another young player to their team, so they're able to maybe be able to put up the money to be able to pay Chris Middleton, or maybe sign somebody else. And then as long as you have another rookie on your roster, it's still cheaper than getting another veteran contract back that other teams might be giving them. So this might entice them, it might not, you never know. But to get not only Bobby Portis, but one of my other favorite Duke players, Grayson Allen, on the team, I think it would be very beneficial for the Lakers to make this mock trade, but you never know. And a recent analyst, I think his name is Gerard Martinez, who does a lot of stuff for USC football as well, reporting, but he recently said that USC obviously has the 3 commitments for the 2024 season. They're actually verbal commitments, they're not officially signed, but he expects that number to either triple or quadruple after these next couple weeks of official visits. Like I've been saying, the next couple weeks there are a lot of talented dudes coming in, and I know last year USC was able to get more than a handful, double digit, like 10 or 14, between that range of guys who came on one weekend. So hoping for the same, especially with a lot of the talent that's going to be on campus. So hoping this guy is correct, like how I've been trying to speak it into existence. You never know, but yeah, definitely looking forward to the news that USC is going to be getting out of these official visits over the next couple of weeks. Then there was a report saying that the Lakers would be interested, or they're definitely going to try to match up any offer sheet that any team tries to throw at their player Austin Reeves in free agency, up to $100 million, which is pretty crazy, because that would mean like he's going to be averaging like 4 year, $20 million each year. So that's going to be a pretty crazy deal, or actually $25 million. So that's going to be quite a bit. He's going to be the 3rd highest paid player on the team, but he might be worth it. They might be able to backload that money onto later, years, in case they need to trade him or get rid of him. But I think he's a bit more of a high priority to keep, instead of guys like D'Angelo Russell, maybe even over Rui Hachimura, especially if the money is too high for Rui, because there's a certain limit I would go with Rui, because I think he could help you more during the playoffs than during the season, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, that'd be pretty interesting if teams were that. I think teams would end up doing something stupid like that to try to hinder the Lakers in any way that they could, but be pretty crazy if it got up to that high, $100 million for Austin Reeves. That'd be pretty freaking crazy. And then speaking of D'Lo, yes, there was another report out there saying that the Lakers would be more interested in dealing him as a sign-and-trade deal instead of trying to work out some newer contract with him, or just letting him go completely for free. So maybe they could find a team out there to bite, and who's desperate to be able to have a guy who's probably more good during the regular season than during the playoffs, kind of like an opposite for Rui for some reason. But yeah, I don't know. There could be a team out there who's going to bite, but you just never know. So we'll see. And Andy Katz recently put out his Power 36. I guess that's his top 36 teams going into next college basketball season. And of course, Duke is number 2 overall. Not that surprised because of how much talent they have coming back. So definitely looking forward to their season. Started in the fall, but then also USC is ranked number 12 in the nation, which is pretty crazy. I know it's just his list, and he's a pretty big analyst and reporter out there for all of college basketball, but who knows if they're still going to follow him and have USC that high as well. But there is a lot of talent at USC now, so you never know, especially for just this one season. We'll see what can happen. But speaking of USC, yes, Bronny James, his first game will actually be in Las Vegas on the road, playing at, I think it's a T-Mobile Arena out there in Vegas against Kansas State, who's been a pretty good team out there in the Big 12 the past couple of years. So a nice game to either, if USC gets a win, it's a nice win towards the end of the season to get them into the tournament more easily if they end up struggling later, or if you lose closely, then it's still a good win or a good loss, in my opinion, to be able to help out your numbers as well, facing a tough competitor that early in the season. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Kansas State did do pretty good this last year. I forget if it was last year or the year before, but either way, there's still some talent left on that roster. So the Power 5 conference revenue came out, and I think Pac-12 was like 4th in that listing, and the Big 10, which is where USC will be moving to after this season, their revenue was the highest at like $845+ million, which is good. It's obviously why USC was so intent on moving into one of the bigger conferences out there, to be able to have that extra money, not only to spend on their program, but also NIL and get some of the better players out there, or even build up their facilities even better as well. So I think it's a nice opportunity for them to be able to do that, and hoping for some good things around that campus in the near future. But when it comes to, already forgot. Yeah, Nick Saban, he was talking about this. He was like, for some reason, upset and mentioning USC that a lot of them or Georgia or even schools in Texas are kind of cheating and using the NIL money to be able to buy these players. But to be honest, the West Coast team that's doing it more than even USC is doing it, it's actually Oregon. More than half of those guys on the roster, I'm sure they're paying big time bucks in NIL money just to even get not only the high school players, but transfers as well. USC usually uses their money on transfers, and even then they don't get some of the bigger time transfers out there as well. I think Florida State got a lot of the good guys, and Colorado got like 50+ players, but that's just because they had a big time exodus out there. But it's not like they were all good players either. But yeah, USC does not use that game as much. It's just funny how you're considered the greatest coach in probably college football history, and you're still coaching, and yet you have to gripe and complain about this stuff happening just because there's going to be more parity in college football than it was just, Alabama and Clemson being some of the better teams out there for a couple years straight. So now he has competition. He's afraid. So as long as he's talking about you in that sense, and I guess USC is doing the right thing. And there's some news because I think there's a Michigan State, and I forget who else they're playing. Maybe it's Washington or something. I forget who they're playing, which is, I guess, a pretty good matchup overall. So you would think it would be on most of the TV programs, whether it's ESPN or I think it's NBC or any of the places that NBC also has. But for some reason, it's being relegated to like Peacock. So they were pretty much upset that why did we, schedule a tough opponent, and even though we think this game's going to get a lot of eyeballs, NBC is putting it on their streaming service, which a lot of people aren't really watching and going into compared to being on the regular NBC channel, or NBC Sports is another channel as well that they run. So I don't know. Could be interesting, especially when it comes to like USC, because obviously they're relegated to putting some of their cheaper games or not as important games on the Pac-12 network, like they have their first 2 games this season coming up. But maybe when they move out there to the Big 10, they might be relegated to having games on there sometimes. It's like, I understand people are being upset about it, because what if they don't have Peacock and they aren't streaming it, and the times that your team is playing on there, that's the only place you can watch it. But I think if your team is getting on there, you might as well just pay the subscription, because you're going to be able to get the other games as well eventually on there and some other stuff. So in the way, it's not that bad of a thing, but it could upset a lot of people, which it has already, even before USC has gone over there. So you never know. And then, yes, the California Classic was recently put up, at least the 2 teams that the Lakers will be facing during that July 4th weekend. I believe July 3rd they're playing against the Heat preseason team, and then July 5th they will be playing against the San Antonio Spurs team for like a preseason. It's even like before preseason, because I know some teams meet up in like Orlando or even Utah sometimes before they get to the main summer league in Las Vegas. And the Lakers kind of do this to have a couple games under their belt with their young guys, and it's really like right after the draft too, and then they go into the summer league as well with all those guys. So we'll see what happens, but not really looking forward to this. I don't really watch it that much, just watch highlights to see how some of the young guys did, but it usually isn't a barometer for how good these guys are going to be. And yeah, always kind of reminded by this on Twitter. Like some people always put up certain times that how good the 2020 Lakers were, and obviously them winning the championship, but because it was still in the throes of COVID, they never really got the opportunity to celebrate, especially because it was like, what was it, like November or something like that when it was officially done, or around that time that they had a month off before the next season started, and people were still not able to really go out in big crowds, and especially here on the West Coast in California. And they still technically have not done some type of celebration or anything like that. I kind of get it, especially if like the last two teams in the finals, which the Lakers have not been since then, had a player that was ex on that team, and they weren't able to be there to celebrate during this time. I think that would be understandable. But even like say during this time, before there is a finals winner, they should have already done some type of celebration to at least congratulate and celebrate that team as well. But I don't know, it just seems like the Lakers fans are never going to be able to get a chance to have a parade to celebrate all those guys that are able to help them win a championship on that day, which sucks. But I don't know, maybe they'll have like a function 20 plus years from now, and you'll have to pay a buttload of money to get in to celebrate, but you never know. Then the other day, it was 24 years since Enema of the State, Blink-182 album that was released. Obviously, their most famous songs on there were What's My Age Again and All the Small Things, but there's still a lot of good songs on there. Of all like the, 11 or 13 songs, there might be like one or two songs that I still have on my playlist, but I might skip. But other than that, if there's any of those other songs on there playing, I will probably still listen to it as well. And it's an infamous cover too, because of the chick with the big boobs, the nurse, whatever, and all that stuff. It's like all the comedy stuff they were doing at that time. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty cool thing. Can't believe it's been 24 years. That's freaking crazy. Then to end this video, yes, I did see like a lot of backlash from the Australian announcement of The Office show, which isn't surprising because even after Ricky Gervais made it in England and brought it to the US, that was already a big uproar from the English fans that they didn't think that Steve Carell or anybody will be able to make it as good. And yeah, that first season was pretty bad. It's not horrible. There are some good moments in the US version of The Office first season, but it's only like 6 episodes, which is kind of weird. But it did become a better show in my opinion. I've tried to watch that English version of The Office, but because a lot of it is a lot of what the first season that the US version kind of copied, that I always just think of more of the version of the US in my head that I thought was better. But I still got to get through it at some point because there's still a lot of funny moments in there of the English version. But they've done stuff in like Brazil, Germany, all over the world, different versions of The Office that obviously Ricky Gervais is claiming that money. But going down to Australia could be pretty interesting just because of how crazy. I know a lot of people might get upset, but I kind of always see them like rednecks and stuff. So they're always looking to have fun and do some crazy shizzle down there. But either way, I think it could be interesting because there's a lot of funny people who are Australian, but also their neighbors in New Zealand as well. So maybe they might mix them in also. So we'll see what happens. Maybe they could get Taika Waititi to be one of the guest appearance stars. You never know. So yeah, thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Bye.